On this episode of Bite Sized, we are watching and discussing the 35th scene of the movie Twilight. For those of you watching along at home, that's from 45:54 to 47:21. And now, on to the episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back, if this is not your first time, to another episode of Bite Sized. For those of you just joining us for the first time, here's what's going on. You're jumping into a movie about halfway through. I hope that's okay with you. My name's Ben. I'm your host. I'm watching the movie Twilight one scene at a time with a different guest every week. What that means is I take someone I know or in some cases have never spoken to before. I send them anywhere from 30 seconds to 3 minutes of the movie Twilight. We talk about it for a half hour with very little other context and usually wind up talking about other things. Joining me today is an improviser, comedian, writer, playwright, all-around active in the TTRPG space, and very strong Charlisle truther, Madeleine Mason. Welcome to Bite Size.
I'm here to spread the good message. I'm so excited to be here.
You know, when I ask people to be on this show, their reactions vary from disinterested to very interested. And you immediately put up like a 15 out of 10 on the interested scale. Like I sent you an email out cold. For the listener, we've never met or spoken before. You came recommended from last week's guest. And your immediate reaction was, I think your words were immediately yes. And then you actually responded to the email that I sent, which was just wonderful. So clearly, you're a big fan of this, which means you will have, I'm sure, a good long answer to my first question. I'm going to start this interview the way I start every interview. That is by asking you, Madeleine, what is your history with the Twilight franchise?
I hadn't read the books, but when Twilight was out in theaters, my mom wanted to see it, and so she asked me if I wanted to see it with her. And I was like, yeah, I'll see a movie with you, Mom. I don't know what it's about. Well, I was like, what's it about? She's like, vampires, and I don't like horror movies, so I was like, is it scary? She goes, no, so it's about, she could explained it a bit. She goes, about this girl in high school, and she falls in love with a vampire. And I was like, okay, sold. This sounds great. So I went and I watched it, and I don't know like what it was, because I think I left just kind of being like, okay. And then I think reading the books kind of like kicked it into high gear for me, because I thought the movie was like, yeah, I liked it. But then my mom gave me the books, and because they're deceptively easy to read because they're long, but the print is really, really big. So
it is.
Yeah, so actually all my Twilight books are right next to me. I bring them with me wherever I go.
Oh, good, just in case.
Yes, just in case. And then I have Midnight Sun on my Kindle. But yeah, so my mom gave me all her Twilight books, and I read through them all. I think the world of Twilight is so interesting and so weird, and the vampire lore is just so like melodramatic, and
it's a great word for it.
Yeah, I've sat through every movie. I eagerly anticipated Breaking Dawn. I did become a bit more jaded because I did kind of enter not like the fandom, because the fandom didn't really happen until I hit kind of like late middle school, but there was definitely like the pushback, and I was like very secret about my Twilight love. I was like, it's a secret in my heart.
Were you being persecuted for it? Why did you need to hide it?
I wasn't, but I saw my fellow kindred being persecuted for their love.
Did you have like real life friends that were into it, or was this strictly an internet based fandom?
Oh no, I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things on the internet at the time. I would say that like my mom and I were like, because we do it together, and it's kind of like age appropriate to do it with your mom.
So your mom was the one bullying you for liking Twilight.
No, she liked it, and she encouraged it. Yeah. She encouraged it. I'd say my dad teased me, but dads never understand. Just like Charlie Swan.
We're gonna talk a lot about dads today.
Never understands. Yeah. I think also just like reading stuff on the internet, just like all this vitriol at Bella, who is literally just a teenage girl. I was like, oh, I can't be loud about my love, or else I will be nailed on the cross like Bella is.
When did you decide to stop hiding that side of you? When did you become an unabashed, unashamed Twilight fan?
Probably just kind of like around college where I was like, I don't care anymore. It's whatever. And it just was kind of like fun to think about because I do have a lot of positive memories, like going to movies with my friends and talking about it and like trying to dress like Bella and then like watching all of the things that are like adjunct to Twilight, like the Vampire Diaries, which I never got super into and I'm like watching now as an adult. But it was just like, it was fun and silly. And I think, I don't know, I graduated into the year 2020, so I was like, I need like one bit of whimsy to get me through to the next day.
Right.
And I think like just kind of unabashedly being like, yeah, I like Twilight. It's dumb, but it's my dumb thing, so shut up.
That seems to be, the reputation that Twilight has now, that dumb but it's my dumb thing, is very much where Twilight fans has landed, and I think that's a good and surprisingly healthy approach to fandom that you don't typically see. Like, I don't know, to use an example of like Star Wars fans, for example, can get pretty toxic about either this is bad and therefore it's horrible and no one should ever watch it again, or this is actually secretly good and the bad things are actually secretly good things.
Yeah, I'm a Star Wars fan,
shocking.
So
Same. I say that with a certain amount of self-awareness. That like, and speaking of self-awareness, that's exactly what I would, say is in Twilight fans. This knowledge that, it's bad, but it's our bad. I think it's beautiful. And something you don't see, that sort of honesty is refreshing in fandom spaces.
I love it now. I reread it a hot second ago, and it was just like an easy reader to get through, which was nice.
When you say you tried to dress like Bella, do you just mean in your day-to-day life or for like dressing up like for premieres or something?
I think it was just like you try to mimic her fashion. She has like a very kind of casual, cool style that is, of course, like Kristen Stewart is a very like slender person. So of course it's going to look good on her. Yeah. So I think it's just a matter like Bella wears a long sleeve lacy shirt, so I'm gonna wear a long sleeve lacy shirt and kind of emulating. Although I have a friend who is moving and they have a I think it's a recreation of the shirt Bella wears in the baseball scene in Twilight in the movie. Yeah. And I'm trying to buy it from them because I do think it's a really cool shirt and I like it.
Let's get into the scene, the thing that we are here to talk about today. Bella is in the police station. Charlie is there specifically at his desk. He's sad. Bella walks up. They briefly talk. They walk out. She has some flashbacks. That's the general overview. Now let's get into the scene itself. Billy's sitting there. Charlie is sitting there. I also called him Billy in my notes.
Yeah, I think because the actors, I believe the actor who plays him, his name is Billy.
Yes, and I'm surprised that I did that. Yes, the real person's name is Billy, but Charlie is sitting at his desk. Mm-hmm. He's sad. Bella walks up, and he's doing some, maybe I don't want to use the word surprisingly good acting, but he's really doing a good job of conveying this sort of dad thing where he's trying to hide his emotions and not only kind of doing it very well. It feels like a tough balance to strike. I say this as someone who's not an actor at all, but like that, that push and pull of trying to convey emotions while also trying to convey hiding those emotions is probably a pretty difficult balance to strike. And he's actually doing it really well.
It's so good. And I'm going to really try not to make this like my Charlisle manifesto because...
Oh, no, let's do that.
Because Carlisle, and this is why I think they're perfect for each other, because Carlisle is this very like feminine man in the way he kind of curates and holds himself. And he is kind of like this patriarch, but he's almost like curated his family. And there are no masculine expectations placed upon like Edward or Emmett or Jasper. They are just kind of expected to live as they are, and Carlisle is helping them to like live their best self and their best life. Whereas like Charlie is kind of like trying to be the man's man. By the way, Forks, Washington, I don't know if another guest has told you this, it's a very conservative town.
That's not surprising.
It's a sundown town.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know they had those that far north.
Oh, there's quite a few.
Yeah. Are you from the Washington
No,
area?
I'm from Sacramento, but my aunt lives in Portland, and that's where Carlisle's house is. So you can go see it.
Yes, longtime listeners to the show will remember that my wife and I, when we first started dating, took a trip to Seattle and drove out to Forks, and were disappointed to find that most of the Forks in the movie is actually not in Forks, Washington. Washington.
No, it's not. Yeah, it is. It's kind of disappointing. But with that, like, Forks is a very conservative, like, town, and Billy is like, Charlie is, he's the sheriff. He's a sheriff, right? I believe so.
Well, chief or something like that.
He has such, like, and, like, that's such a masculine role to take on. Like, men are expected to be, like, the protectors, and he has the expectation of being the protector, and he's like, I cannot show weakness, and I can't even show weakness to my own daughter, because if I show fear, then she's gonna be afraid, so I have to, like, you know, man up, whatever that is, to be, like, the bigger, braver person. And that's why I think they complement each other so well, because I really think Carlisle could help Charlie get in touch with, like, his sensitive side.
Yeah. But then he loses everything that makes him Charlie.
I don't think he does. Anymore. Charlie's a very, like, he's going through a lot. I think he's, I don't want to say he's the main character in my head, but he has such a more interesting story than Bella does, in my opinion, because there's so much happening around him. His wife's divorced him. His daughter has, like, absolutely no interest in him as a person. And this, like, weird guy is, like, kind of, like, skulking around his daughter. And then his friends are starting to die.
And he never asks any questions about any of this. All this crazy stuff that happens around him. I think it takes him 4 movies to learn that there are vampires right under his nose. And that's only because someone straight up tells him. Charlie's a little head empty in a way that I kind of like.
I think he has this kind of like, well, it might as well just happen. You know, like the John Wayne, like, this might as well happen. I think that's kind of where he's at. I think he's just so tired. He's like, sure, whatever. Okay.
What else? Yeah, I guess. Sure.
But yeah, so it's like, this is... Charlie's such a vulnerable character, and I do feel so bad for him, especially because, like, in the movie, specifically Twilight, I think Bella is just really cruel to Charlie and just kind of acts out at him, and he's very, very wounded, and Billy Burke just gives this very, like, reserved performance, but you can see the wounds seeping through, and how he is just hurting so much right now.
He really is, because his good friend Waylon has died. Waylon, he knew him for 30 years, eaten by some sort of animal, he thinks anyway. He tells Bella it's not safe out there, so he gives her some pepper spray.
Hey. Dad, I'm really sorry.
Known them going on 30 years. Don't worry, we're gonna find this thing. Meantime, I want you to carry this with you.
I don't know.
It'll give your old man some peace of mind.
Another classic dad move.
Yeah.
You know, the old daughter self-defense thing.
My dad has given me pepper spray before. Sometimes I'll be driving with my dad, and he'll just kind of be like, do you know what to do in an active shooter situation? I'm like...
I mean, you know, it's a fair question, I guess.
I'm like, you know, it is a fair question, but I know it's not it's like, and I love my dad so much. I talk with my dad every day, but, like, it's like the weirdest thing. Your dad picks you up from school, and he's like, do you know what to do in an active shooter situation? I'm like, why are we did you see something in the news? Like, but no, when I moved to Los Angeles, my dad was, like, very adamant about getting a security system. I'm like, understandable. But then my dad is kind of a believer in, like slight mysticism. So he also put crystals around my apartment for protection.
Interesting. What a twist.
I had security alarm protection, but I also had protection for my soul.
And ghost protection too.
Exactly. Yeah. He did sage the apartment with Palo Santo. He cleansed it with Palo Santo when we moved in. Charlie could never. It's gonna keep happening.
No, he totally would not.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. Let it happen. Billy, Charlie. And you're not the first person to do it on the show. It happens all the time. But yes, Charlie would never do that.
Yeah, I do think Billy Burke does look a lot like a young Ethan Hawke, so I kind of...
Oh, interesting.
Or, like, their faces are very similar to me.
Now that you say it, I totally see it. I'd never considered that before.
They look really similar, and I'm like, Ethan Hawke was not. No, that's the other guy. But I think they should... What? Well, no, I think to myself, like, oh, was Ethan Hawke in Twilight? Oh, no, that was the other guy.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
but I think they should play, like, brothers or something.
My version of the pepper spray thing is when I was around 17-ish, my mom signed me and my brother up for Aikido classes at a local community college. Because that was that she thought that would help us in self-defense situations.
Ooh.
And it's never come into use a single time. And I've forgotten that one semester of Aikido that I took 10 years ago.
You need to practice those moves so you don't get rusty.
I guess. Well, I'm very rusty at this point. The one thing I did learn is how to fall down without getting hurt, and that's been surprisingly useful.
Yeah, that's a very useful spell.
It's a very useful spell. You're right. That's a spell that I know.
I cast slow.
I cast land on butt, and then I do. Before we get too far away from the pepper spray, I do want to mention I found on IMDb a fun goof, something I haven't done before. I'm going to go to IMDb.
Goofs. I love IMDb.
I do too. This says the pepper spray that Charlie gives Bella has a green label, which means it's a training canister and contains water instead of pepper spray for training purposes. So good job, Charlie. You've done absolutely nothing.
Or, hear me out, he knows and it's holy water. And
that is also a possibility. Yes, he's one step ahead of the game.
He's one step, like Van Helsing move. Charlie Swan is
He
here
knows
to save
the
the day.
pepper spray won't be any good. He took this can of water to a local priest, had it blessed. It's holy water now.
Exactly. And that's why Charlisle, it's enemies to lovers.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Charlie's devoutly Catholic. He keeps a lot of crucifixes in the house. Carlisle cannot deal with that.
Exactly.
I do need to ask, though, what happens to Esme in your Charlisle world?
I don't know. I like Esme.
Do they just open up their marriage? Or
First of all,
does she have to leave?
You know, polyamory is always fun, and I can see her being like, sure, why not? Mm-hmm. But I also like her, but she's also, I feel bad, because, like, I think Nikki Reed plays her, I think Nikki Reed, who's the girl who plays her, but it's just such a nothing character. It's so...
No, she's not really given a lot to do.
It's so thankless compared to, like, Bella's mom. It's because there are just so many Cullens. Like, after a certain point.
Yeah, Alice really gets the meat of it. Mm-hmm. And then, what's her name? The
Rosalie?
other one. Rosalie, thank you. Rosalie then has a little bit to do, so, but by the time you get to Esme, there's just nothing going on. Bella and Charlie, I didn't call him Billy. Good job, me. It almost happened, but I didn't. Bella and Charlie leave the police station. Right before they're about to step outside, Charlie stops, and so Bella walks outside on her own, which I thought is a bad move for a guy who just told his daughter how dangerous it is out there. Maybe don't let her go out there alone.
I think Bella Swan is just so clueless, because it's like, maybe she just wants to get in the car and go home, because part of me is like, maybe that's why she's going and Charlie's waiting, but it's very clear Charlie is waiting because the stretcher is coming. That's very clear. Why he's stopping is to let the stretcher pass.
Yeah, there's like a police officer right inside the doors who like stops him and like shows him a clipboard or something. Mm-hmm. But you can tell they really didn't have a reason to do that other than we need Bella to have her little moment center stage. You could have just left him out of the end of this scene entirely.
Exactly. He could have said, like, I'm going to the car, I'm sad, meet me there, Bella.
Yeah. Speaking of the stretcher, Bella steps outside and sees the dead body on the stretcher being taken to a really old ambulance.
Yeah.
I get that Forks is small and probably doesn't have the biggest budget, but that ambulance looks like it's from the 70s or something.
I don't mean to, like, I don't know, toot my horn with my post-mortem medical knowledge, but you would never, like, expose the feet like that.
Yeah, that's weird. Honestly, that's like my next 10 minutes of notes is the only thing she sees is feet, which is such a weird choice, the exposed feet of the dead body. And, like, I get that you don't want to show something too gruesome for this young adult teen romance movies, but, like, I don't know. The exposed feet seems like such a weird choice. Did they think that, like, if you cover the feet, people won't know that it is a body? Like, what was the point of having his toes out?
Contextually, my brain, if I see, like, in a film or a show or anything, someone's on a stretcher and the entire body is covered, I think, oh, that person is dead. You know,
Yeah.
part of me like maybe it's to confirm that that's the person, but like who else has died? Who else has died? It's like
Right.
It's very clearly, obviously, that guy, and I don't know. Maybe it was to show like the decay of the body or whatever, because it's like his feet are a little effed up. There are some like bite marks, so maybe like these vampires were sucking blood from the feet. I don't know, but it's very like it's a weird directorial choice to just have the feet out.
It sure is, and also raises a lot of questions like, where are his shoes? Did they remove his shoes as part of like their little medical exam, or was he found without shoes?
Most likely, basically, if this body is in its current state and it was transported from the location of where it was found, I'm assuming that it was taken to some sort of mortuary to be conducted for an exam. So they most likely had removed all of his clothing. So
see, I thought that's what they were doing. What they were doing with the body, though, like they took it to the police station. Directly, the scene before this, we see Carlisle walking out of the police station, having just done the exam. Sarah and I talked about this a lot. Was he just checking it out? Was he doing a full autopsy? We don't know. My assumption is that they took his body to the police station, called in Carlisle, who checked him out, said, yep, he's dead because of all the bite marks.
Yeah.
And then they're going to send him off to like an actual hospital to do the actual autopsy.
Yes, for like a formal cause of death. Because some police stations, to like ID a body, they'll have someone come in to like ID and, hey, is this the person that you know?
Yes. And so I bring this up to say, I think they would not have needed to remove his shoes for that.
No, they wouldn't.
And it has been established, Sarah, another thing Sarah and I talked about last scene. Sorry, listeners, to just recap last week's episode. But we know later on that two of the vampires that killed Waylon, one of them is wearing his shirt and one of them is wearing his jacket. So it probably makes sense that they took his shoes as well, which means that the police found a dead body with no shirt, no jacket, no shoes out in the middle of winter and said, must be an animal, which makes absolutely no sense.
Well, here's the thing. In the amount of supernatural content I have consumed, a lot of times the police aren't saying it's an animal because they don't know what else to say. It's like, you can't tell the people of Forks, Washington, there's an animal on the loose because there's no stab marks, there's no bullet wounds, so we can't say serial killer. It's like just bite marks. So what else do you do? What else do you say? You know?
It's clearly one of those mountain lions that takes its shoes off its prey.
Exactly. I don't know. Well, it's also like, is this a Pacific Northwest, like, world of serial killers? There has to have been, like, one person that's like, there is a new serial killer in Forks, Washington that is biting people to death. Oh,
man. If this had come out, I don't know, in 2024, basically, with the way the true crime has boomed, there would absolutely be internet rumors and like subreddits and Facebook groups discussing the Forks murders and trying to figure out what exactly did this.
Yep.
And there would be animal theories and serial killer theories and vampire theories. And I guess what I'm trying to say is we need a modern Twilight reboot, sort of like how we got an updated Mean Girls recently. I think we need an updated Twilight. Bella sees the feet, and this triggers a series of flashbacks in her. This is like my last big thing I want to talk about, because she has these series of flashbacks to things that she's seen. And this is supposed to be her sort of connecting some dots and realizing that Edward is a vampire who may be connected to this monster killing. And the things that she flashes back to are Edward's eyes, which were an unusual color in class. Edward and the rest of the Cullens not eating lunch, including a special cameo from Emmett's big bag of hard-boiled eggs.
The eggs!
Love to see the eggs. Edward's hand from two scenes, or literally the scene before. And then the feet of the dead body that she just saw. That's right, we get a flashback to something that we saw 6 seconds ago, in case it wasn't clear enough, the connection there. And it's weird to me because these seem like the things, if I was making this movie and I wanted to show Bella thinking that Edward is a vampire, I would have flashed back to like the parking lot scene where he runs and stops the van, something like that. Not like the most easily explainable things, like someone having dark eyes and not eating lunch one day and having cold hands are like the most plausible thing that normal people do every day. And yet these are the things that when she sees the toes, that's what she thinks of.
I do have to ask, because there's an explanation why. Are you a femme person? A femme identifying person?
No.
Then that's why you don't get it. Because here's the thing. Those are the eyes. Like, because Bella thinks Edward is so attractive. There's this like constant pull that she has to them. So it's not just like these are the qualities of a vampire. These are the things that makes Edward feel dangerous. The fact that
his hands are cold?
Well, the fact that his hands not cold, but like someone who just held a can of Diet Coke and that was from the ice and then put their hands around your neck. His hands are like that forever. And imagine brushing hands with your crush and their hands felt like that. Imagine that. Okay. So in these moments that are meant to be electrifying for Bella, being noticed by Edward, have these undercurrents of horror to it. His eyes being a really weird, unsettling color. The aloofness, the fact that he looks at her like with disgust, and the fact that when they brush hands, his hands are ice cold. It's because you're not a woman. You don't get it.
I guess you're right. I'm not. I'm just going to have to take your word for it. It just seems odd to me that if you're trying to prove someone is a vampire, the fact that he didn't eat lunch one day, I feel like shouldn't make your top 10 list of reasons.
It's beyond that. It's about...
What sort of mystique does the fact that he didn't eat lunch carry?
It's not that he didn't eat lunch. It's the fact that he wouldn't stop staring at her.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the whole point of the scene. It's not to highlight that they weren't eating lunch. It's the fact that Edward was the only person there who was paying like attention to her. Bella, a character who notoriously does not want attention, but Edward is like relentlessly preying on her because he's always watching her. His hands are cold. Like, it's almost like, not is Edward a vampire, but I think Bella's first thought is, did Edward do this? Because she kind of has this like history of behavior. Sure. Like, my crush is a little weird and a little he might be killer. I don't know. And then I think that's what sends Bella down the rabbit hole, because then anyways, no spoilers, but that's what I think it is. It's not just this like, oh, this is what makes him a vampire, but it's all of these unsettling qualities underneath like the desire of it all.
Yeah. I won't say I'm completely sold, but you have started to convince me that there may be, I don't know, those may be good things to show in this flashback. I just think like, I don't know, if it was me, those are not the first three things that would come to my mind.
That's totally fair.
Yeah.
As a teenage girl, those are the three things.
Those are not.
As someone who was once a teenage girl, though, I'm going to be so real. If I suspected my crush of like being a murderer, I'd be like, one time I brushed his hand and it was like weirdly cold.
All
like,
right.
That's the logic and train of thought that I would personally have.
You sold me on my one rule with the Twilight movies. Yeah, no, but you really did, because one of my rules with the Twilight movies is these characters are high schoolers, and I did a lot of shit in high school that, looking back now, I was like, what was I thinking? So you know what? Yeah, she's a high schooler. You do make weird decisions and connections like that when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
I'll take it, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's start to wrap this up. I'll ask my final question of this portion by asking you, if you had to give this scene a name, what would it be? And this is also going to be the name of the episode, so make it good.
Oh, dang. Before this recorded, I called Bella's like flashes like The Shining almost. Yeah. And I feel like this is almost like Bella's Shining, where she's kind of like connecting all these dots. Yeah. So I think this should be called The Shining Swan, because Bella's having these shining moments. And it's about both of the swans, Charlie and Bella. So Shining Swans.
The Shining Swan. That's beautiful.
Yeah, actually swans with an S, because it's both.
The Shining Swans. Okay. That's great. I love it. Fantastic. Madeleine Mason, thank you so much for being on the show. If people like the sound of your voice and the cut of your jib and want to maybe hear or see more of the kind of stuff that you do online, where can they do that kind of thing?
They can find me on TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, all under the username The Goose Girl. That is THEE Goose Girl, like Megan the Stallion. I'm a professional shit tweeter, shit poster. I tweet a lot about like tabletop games. I've been tweeting a lot about the Jenny Nicholson Star Cruiser video.
Oh yeah,
I'm in a few shows, tabletop shows that are coming up. So I've also been promoting those on my various platforms. Watch The Mummy: A Dig Too Deep over on the Dice Times YouTube channel. If you like the Mummy franchise, go watch that. I play a librarian named Philomena Clark.
All right, there you go. If you want to follow this show on social media, you can do so at bitesizedpod_ on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. If it's June when you're listening to this, that means that I've finally started posting stuff there again and will continue to do so regularly. I mean it this time. If you want to reach out to the show, maybe talk about something we talked about, if you want to help convince me that cold hands means someone is definitely a monster, you can send an email to myfavoritetwilightpodcast@gmail.com. All that information and more available at twilightpodcast.com. That's right, this show has a website. Thank you so much to my editor Ben Oxer for putting this show together. Thank you to the band's swimwear department for letting me use their song Mauled to Death as our theme, never more appropriate than it is today. Kellen Lutz, if you're listening, please come on the show.
Wait,
I think you would be cool.
Can I make a call?
What?
Can I make a call to Kellen Lutz?
Yeah, absolutely. I decided a few episodes ago that I want to get Kellen Lutz on the show.
Okay, so hi, Kellen. You don't know me, but I don't think you understand the impact that Emmett has had on the Twilight franchise. Everyone loves Emmett. You need to understand. And if you could go and put some words down, you would skyrocket into like knowledgeability. Like whatever Tom Felton is doing, you could also have.
That's it. That really is the gist of it. Kellen, if you want to ascend to the next level of stardom, come on this show.
Yes.
That's really all it needs. All you need to do. But with all that, the thanks and credits out of the way, that is it. That is the end of yet another episode of Bite Size. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week. And as we always say, at the end of every episode,
Vampire! I'm dead.
Vampire, I'm dead. That's it. Thank you so much. See you next time.
I want you to carry this with you.